Thank you again. Okay, I'm going to present, this paper, is part of, my first presentation, but I am including, especially, this paper, which is called Competitiveness, Perception of Insecurity, and Location Key, which of course are key drivers of the regional distribution of FDI. So I'm going to be focused on, how to distinguish, foreign investment in north and south of Mexico, which is the motivation of, foreign direct investment is widely recognized as a key engine for economic growth, employment generation, technological transfer, and international production integration. This is the agenda. We're going to see which are the motivations, for this paper: objective and hypothesis, theoretical background, the Mexican context, methodology, descriptive statistics, findings, and limitations. This paper examines the role of competitiveness, insecurity, perception, and geographical locations in explaining, how, foreign investment, distribution in Mexico is actually. Mexico exhibits strong north and south inequality in investment, in foreign investment. The objective of this research is to analyze if geographic location affects FDI. And after controlling GDP, insecurity, and competitiveness, we use, several databases, which of course means we have the information of GDP of, every region of Mexico and also of the state. Insecurity, we have, an index of insecurity, proposed by government. And also we have a special index of, how it measures, competitiveness in Mexico. It's a private institution. The hypothesis: geographic location significantly influence FDI attraction, and of course we find out that yes, the answer is yes. And we test whether geographically still matters, or geography still matters after controlling some core economic variables. The theoretical background of this research, it's a new economic geography theory, or Paul Krugman, we know. All we know, this theory, refers that there are some places that offer, many determinants to attract FDI, but also, the Peru, theory, which is growth poles, as we can see here in Mexico. We discovered that, investment is really focusing in the north, not in the south, but we contrast with this theory of Peru. And location theory also, it was, proved when we, tested, the model, and of course, with the databases that we included, in the research. And cumulative causation also model, we prove it also, and we discovered that there were some coincidences, using the model. So, which is the Mexican context? We see that in northern, cities and Bajío regions, it's dominated, by foreign investment. We have many headquarters, many manufacturing facilities in the north of Mexico, mainly electronics, but also we have car industry, factories, and all the support and related industries, to these sectors. But not only, but we have aeronautical, industries, and this is because we have a tremendous demand, from US of these products. We have, also textile industries and everything. Almost all the industry that we have, in the north of Mexico. But what happens in the southern regions, they remain, structurally lagging, because as we have, tremendous demand in US, we do not have, this demand in the south, because we are very close, to Central America, and of course those markets are very, very small, too small, and they do not demand, as much as United States. So that's why, the production, is focused, in the north of Mexico. So this is the model that we use. We use a quantitative explanatory model, 4 years, 32 states, which, are in the Mexican Republic. And of course, 8 regions. We use multiple linear regression with regional dummies because we have to convert, all the dummies and included in the model. On the model specification, FDI is explained by GDP, perception of insecurity, it captures institutional risk, state competitiveness index reflects structural capacity, and a set of regional dummies variables, as I told you, that in 8 regions and 32 states. And assumptions were satisfactorily met. I mean, heteroscedasticity, normality of residuals, and multicollinearity. The descriptive statistics. The South, Center, Northwest, and Northeast regions recorded the highest average of FDI inflows, and the Southwest and Southeast regions show the lowest levels. So there is a strong interrelational asymmetries in FDI average. So when we compare, all the investment, foreign investment, we identify that, capitals prefer, to establish in the north of Mexico rather than in the south, because we can find out that there are some or more competitiveness, and of course the GDP of these states are very strong, so they prefer, to move to these states. They don't like, to be, in the south because it corresponds, I mean, difficulties for them to, for example, export, products. For example, what about logistics? They don't use, the south, states because of that. Which are the findings and conclusions? State GDP exhibits a strong and positive effect on FDI with high statistical significance. This confirms that larger economies attract more investment, which are located, of course, in the north of the country. And the competitiveness index is also positive and is statistically significant. So perception of insecurity shows a negative and significant coefficient. That means that, companies are not considering insecurity as a fact, for not to invest in Mexico. They are more focused on competitiveness, they are more focused on GDP, they are more focused on other things rather than insecurity. Of course, they are, able to pay, for, secure conditions or situations rather than, moving, all the production facilities. So they prefer, the northern because, it's more secure. And of course, it's more competitive. And, it's a region that offers, many facilities. Adjusted R squared, meaning that our variables explain 70% of the variation in FDI across Mexican states. Although not all regional coefficients reach conventional levels of statistical significance, their economic magnitude is consistent and informative, confirming that geography still conditions FDI allocation in Mexico. So that explains, the model. And this is, a map of competitive differences between northern and southern, Mexico. We see, for example, in the north, color, in yellow color, that we have, a high density of industrial parks and manufacturing zones, better road and rail corridors to the US and the border, and of course, greater availability of logistics and infrastructure. You see, for example, in the north part, very close to San Diego, California, we have, for example, a Samsung, cluster. We assembly, all the fridges that have, these big screens where you can see inside, the fridge. So we assemble there, for example, in Mexico, have, huge cluster there. So it is not the only one, but also we assemble, in the north, in the center of Mexico, we are almost assembling, planes, for different companies, and this is an important corridor in this orange color, as you can see. We have a strong automotive industry. We have many factories assembling cars. Most of the cars, are consumed in America. But for example, we we see it also, in orange color. I picture, the state where I live. We have, two plants from Volkswagen. We have an Audi plant, and we have, Volkswagen plant, and we produce, for example, the Q5, which is a very technological, model from Audi, and we exported, these cars, to everywhere in the world. So we have these conditions. So the reality is that in the South, we do not have those conditions. Skilled labor, is still missing, but also, facilities and logistics. But we can see that in the North and in the center, we have, these industrial developments and units of development poles there. So, we confirm, the theories that I've been, talking before. And as you can see, Mexico is growing, fastly in the north because of, we're very close to United States. And the relationship that we have with the United States, of course, it's great. It's growing. And now we are going to have, a new version of USMCA. As you remember, we signed, a free trade agreement, with US, which is the NAFTA, about 25 years ago. But now we have a new version, and it's going to be revised next year, and we're going to have, the second version of the USMCA. So I think we're going to continue with these relations. Which are the policy implications? From a policy perspective, our results imply that a one-size-fits-all investment policy is, ineffective for a country as regional heterogeneous as Mexico. Southern states require targeted infrastructure investment, institutional strengthening, enhanced security governance, and place-based industrial strategies. Otherwise, the nearshoring way will continue to benefit only those regions that are already competitive, which of course I am referring to the north of Mexico. The conclusions of research demonstrates that FDI is economically driven, institutionally conditioned, and especially concentrated. Even after controlling GDP, competitiveness, security, geographic location remains a decisive and structural determinant of distribution of FDI. Without regional differentiated development strategies, territorial inequality will persist and may even deepen under the nearshoring paradigm. Our findings strongly support the central predictions of new economic geography and cumulative acquisition theories. And of course, attract even more investment, reinforcing existing imbalances. Which are the limitations? Finally, this study also has limitations. It relies on a cross-sectional structure. Of course, insecurity is measured through perception indicators, which is the way, the government measures, insecurity. But, it's quite difficult, just to measure exactly, what's going on, with insecurity matters. So, it's kind of a perception because, it gets information, from companies and from persons, asking, how they feel, if they feel safe or not, but also, the condition of the company. So, and the competitiveness index is also a competitive variable that does not isolate specific institutional channels. And the future research should incorporate panel data techniques and spatial econometric models and a comparative analysis which other Latin American economies experience. So we're working on that, and including what's happening with other countries. Like I have some studies comparing the new determinant creation theory, applying the case of Colombia, Chile, and Peru also. But I have to include more countries. Thank you.